Recording in progress.
Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Eby?
Here. Budget Committee or Budget
Oh, no, I'm
Advisory?
calling the wrong one. I'm sorry. Mr. Eby, I'm sorry. I know you're here. I'm sorry. Mr. Dawson? Ms. Spicer? Mr. Petty? Here. Mr. Williams? Mayor Wright?
Here. Then everybody else is on the Budget Advisory Committee. As y'all know, by law, under the 57 Act, we are required to form a budget committee. There's 5 members of it. The mayor is always a member, and then there's 4 of you. We rotate every 3 years, where 4 of you come on, the other 4 leave, and rotates every 3 years. You're on the budget committee. So for the 4 of you with me, congratulations, it's your turn. Tonight, we're going to do the presentation on our budget, the general fund budget, and other associated budgets. And Dr. Weeks is going to do one on the school budget. As we've historically done this, we go pretty quickly on this first meeting. I'm always glad to answer any questions you have, but I'm going to hit the highlights on this budget. Give y'all 2 weeks to look at it, ask any questions, make any suggestions, and when we come back at 6:30 on Monday, May the 16th. But in a general fund budget, you always like to get to the point, because a lot of things don't mean anything after you hear this, but the most important point, it does not require a tax increase. So if you go over to the back page of the 27-page budget you're looking at, and you look on page 27 and the first column, which is estimated fiscal year 22-23, you can see we are in the black, $61,000. We're not going to go through line by line on the budget, but this does have roughly about a 3.25% pay increase in the aggregate for county employees. That's going to cost about $450,000 to do that. That's our challenge every year. We have to typically find enough new money just to give pay raises to stay even. We were able to do that. Apparently we were having about that much growth. The other big expense we got hit really hard on insurance for the first time in the 12 years I've been here. It was over a $300,000 increase. But that's not happy. But the good thing is, if you take our insurance over the last 12 years on health insurance, we're averaging a 3% annual increase, which is good. So we just got hit big and hard this time. But with all that, we've balanced the budget. As you can see, property taxes of our general fund budget, which is almost right at $30 million, is $16.9 million. That's property tax. As you know, the state of Tennessee has various ways we can tax: property, sales tax, and other various fees. But of course, the property tax for county governments is one of the largest on that. So that is where we are. We have moved some pennies around to balance this budget, because we have other funds that were performing very well. And because they have performed well, we moved those pennies over in this budget to balance and to help cover those expenses. We have also in here have gone on and made contingencies for inflation. We've been pretty lucky up until this year with inflationary pressures, but the price of fuel by itself is a long-term issue. We're in good shape from the way we have been budgeting on that. So we're good through this year, and we feel like we're good next year, but there will be continued pressures on that until we see some break in fuel prices. I think I can speak not only for us, but of course with the bus services through the Department of Education, our Education Department School Board. That is really the highlights on this. You can flip through this, and it's unfair of y'all to get it tonight and expect y'all to ask a lot of hard-hitting questions, but I would like for y'all to thumb through that if you want to now, or over the next 2 weeks, and you can get with myself or Don Hall. We can meet with you one-on-one. I can't meet with you as a group because of Sunshine Law, but I can meet with you individually or answer questions on the phone on that, and myself and Mr. Hall are both available. We do see some numbers in here because as we move forward on the budget, we get better numbers because as we move forward, because our revenue numbers and our expense numbers become more real. We're basing all of our projections right now on the third quarter numbers. So each month as we move forward when we get April's numbers and get a good feel for May, some of these revenue and expenses will be adjusted, and we'll bring those back to you in the next budget. But it won't be a great deal of this. This budget, as you see, is pretty much what it's going to be. You've also begun an envelope that has department and elected officials' request. You're going to find that is going to be pretty similar to these budgets. One of them with the Sheriff's Department was probably a bit higher, but we've worked with them on that, and we've worked through it, and Sheriff Eads Sheriff Eads was in agreement with what we've done on that. So it's a really good budget. I feel good about it, especially during the pressures we're having with some of the increased expenses, but it is a balanced budget. It requires no tax increase. I'll be glad to answer any general specific questions for you right now.
Mayor, did you say it doesn't require a tax increase? Is that what you said?
No
Okay.
tax increase.
Okay.
Whatever our property taxes rate is today, 2.35, it'll be the same. We will see, one of the things that helps us with the growth is increasing the value of a penny, what it raises. That typically comes from new construction. We based the budget last year on a penny being 138,000. Right now we're using that figure at 140,000, a slight increase we think, but we don't want to overestimate that. As soon as the assessor office, they will get us a certified tax rate, and we'll change it to that at that appropriate time. But we feel very good from our historic numbers that 140 will be correct. The one that changed is debt service penny has gone down. We moved that to general fund because the value of the penny on that, and the fact that we have variable rate loans that are at lower rates, we have excess funds in there. So we've taken 4 cents out of debt service and moved it over to general fund. And for long-term information, some of the school administration's here tonight, even with our projection, that still allows us to borrow the $32.5 million with no tax increase to start paying that debt in FY25. So it'd be the 24-25 school year where we could start paying debt on that when the school board comes back to us with the plan. We also took, I believe, 3 cents out of capital, 4 cents out of capital, and it also went to general fund. That helped cover the cost. We had a healthy fund balance in our new capital projects fund, plus with the American Rescue Plan money that we have that's also budgeted by itself, we have money in there that will allow us to do a lot of capital projects, so we didn't see the point of adding any pennies any further to that. That'd just be really going into a overfunded account at this point in time. Well, I'm going to, if there's any other questions or comments? On this, we'll do it as aggregate. Let me go over all the smaller funds too, because what the motion is will be from the committee, I believe, is to move it on to our next budget meeting on the 16th. We do this once a year, so I have to look at my attorney to keep me out of trouble. Thank you. He's looking, so he's really on the clock right now. But we will have a May 16th meeting, and then on the first Monday in June, which I don't know what that is right now. Anybody looking around by the time I find my phone? But on the first Monday in June, we'll have a public hearing. June 6th. We will have a budget committee meeting with a public hearing, hopefully to move these budgets on if y'all are in agreement to the full commission body. And at that point in time, we'll vote to approve the budget as we did last year. We did on the first Monday of June, the fiscal year, had it done almost 30 days ahead of time. If there's no other questions about that, I'll go to the next budget I have in order here. I have the landfill budget. That is pretty much a status quo budget. The $10 fee is still in effect on that. We are looking to increase tipping fees, commercial tipping fees. We've been given cost increases on handling tires and things of that type. So we need to pass that cost along to the consumer on those tires and other things, which are businesses where we're just passing our expense onto them, which will be obviously passed on to a customer. So we're not in a position where we can subsidize a commercial business on that. If you flip through here on that budget, again, you feel free to look through it, but if you look at the end on page 4, there's about a $227,000 in the black on that budget. The thing we have not budgeted for is the work on the burn site. We purchased the burn site, but we feel like there's enough money in his fund balance that at the appropriate time, we'll come back to y'all, amend out that money to have that site built out there. The next one I have is the drug control fund. And I think we've always explained this. This is money from basically forfeitures, confiscated property that is brought forward. And it's what we've used with that over time for the Sheriff's Department is buy vehicles. We have $100,000 budgeted in that to buy patrol cars. So this money is seized. So it's put back to use for the Sheriff's Department. Yes. The next budget I have here is American Rescue Plan money on this. This is the money that came from the federal government. As you can see, during last year, we took in $5.2 million, which was our allotment from the federal government. We're not showing a revenue here yet, but we need to go back and add that in. We'll be receiving that same figure from the federal government this month. So that will have that fully funded in this. We're doing a lot of the building projects out of this money that qualify. So what we will do is we bring a building project, we'll come back to you for your approval to take the money out of this. I think all of you are obviously aware of the work we've done upstairs in this building. It's part of a longer-term building program that we're nearing the end on. The first floor is being remodeled now. That'll be done by the end of July. Our goal after that is to start a building next door using this money to put planning and zoning in the whole next door. After that's done, we can redo the downstairs with where archives is, where the archives will have the whole basement from that point forward where they can grow in that for another 20 or 30 years. Then we'll be at the end of the building program that we kind of put together that we started, I guess, really back about 2014. The last thing on the list that we've talked about for a long time, and we're going to seek out grant money, is the rehabilitation of the historic courthouse in preparation of the 2030 bicentennial of that building. So that will be some funding we'll be looking at. It won't be during this fiscal year. We'll probably have a discussion about that either in 1 year or 24 months from now. Next was the highway budget. We've added a lot of funds into that over the last few years. There's a lot of funds being spent out in the county. I found me a new road last night, Gamble Road. It seems like it's paved and striped. So, of course, we'll be getting a call to lower the speed limit because 45 did not seem fast enough to me. I thought, I'm sorry, Sheriff. But no, we got several of those. I think Old 48's been done. Is that my understanding, Mr. Simpkins? You live out that direction. And then has the one in Maple Valley been done yet? No. Okay. Okay. Good. Well, we've got, we put in $1.5 million extra last year, but because of the slowdown we had with the flood in August and then the tornado in December, it took Highway Department off a lot of their normal work. They're about caught back up, but those funds are still there and not been spent yet, so that's why we're not looking at this point in time to add any additional funds until that work is done that we've done before. But hopefully by year's end, we will come back to, as we have in the past, and ask for your suggestions on roads that you have in your district so we can look at improving those. But this fund is in very good shape. Put that on hold because of the tornado. There's going to be a lot of construction work on that. I've talked with Mr. Hodges at Highway Department. They're going to go back in and do some patch paving on the really bad parts, but until a lot of that reconstruction is done, especially on that portion of Merle Road nearest East Piney, going to wait till we do that because brick and drywall trucks can tear you some pavement up really fast. But it's on deck. The next one I have here is the debt service budget. We're performing very well on that. That's why we were able to take funds out of that and move it to the general fund. But we're in a good shape. If you can go to the fourth page on that, we're at 87% on our fund balance, which is good. Our projection, though, shows by the year 2031, we'll be down at 20%. But then after that, it starts growing again. But this has been a part of the long-term plan that we've done on debt service. So we're in real good shape on this one. Capital projects budget, I talked about earlier that we had put in 4 cents on this previously. But because we have so much money, not only left in this fund, but because of the American Rescue Plan money, we thought it was silly to load any more money in this. So there's some of these projects that we get capital outlay notes for, maybe like an ambulance or a few of the vehicles. We'll probably just pay cash for them out of this fund until we get it down to a different rate, so or to a different level. Then the Community Development Fund, better known as the Hotel Motel Tax. You know, we pay a lot of different things to non-direct governmental issues, but we're in good shape on that. If you can look at it historically, we had earned as much in 18-19 as $726,000 in that fund. COVID, as you can see, knocked it down to $598 and then $570, but we've already collected over $600,000 so far this year, so that's what we're going to budget that number. This one's, there's a lot of grant money that comes in and comes out on this, but we're well funded on this one too. Y'all approved a joint project with Tennessee Valley Authority, the state development grant, City of Dickson and us. We're all paying a portion of the Canterbury site where we're having that done, and that money's also in this budget, so it's not coming out of direct tax dollars. So that's all the budgets there that I have, and I know Dr. Weeks would like to go over his, but I'll be glad to answer any questions or get any input on any of these issues from any of you. Well, if there's not any now, I know y'all know where to find me as the next 2 weeks go on, but I really want to thank Don Hall, Lori Whitaker, Linda Gardner, Marianne over at the budget department. They did a really good job on this. It's gotten easier over the years, but it's kind of like we're all on the same page doing this. So I appreciate their work. I appreciate the work of the elected officials. They put together reasonable budgets on this. I appreciate my directors who put together reasonable budgets because, you know, I told them we're in a position because we're tight. It's going to be hard to add people on this. We're trying to look at maximizing hours on those that don't work 40 hours a week to help get more production that direction. But it's a pretty status quo budget, and I'm pretty much pleased with it on this. So again, if there's no questions on that, I'll move to Dr. Weeks. Yes, sir.
On these budgets that was put in by the elected officials, once it's marked done, it means money's been put in that, or how's that?
Which lines are you, which page are you on, Dr.?
Well, any of, I mean,
Oh, on those? Yes, that's Don Hall's writing on that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So any of them that's marked done, they've been approved for the money?
I'll let you explain what you
That's
did.
just where it came out of the packet you're talking about.
Yep, these.
That's just where I've already taken their information and entered it into the file, the computer file.
Okay,
That's just stating that I've already looked at that, entered the information.
okay. Thank you.
Do I need a motion to move this on to the next session, or is this informational? Our attorney says we don't need a motion, that's informational on that. But as you all know, we have a budget committee, like we discussed earlier. You all, we started this process 11 years ago, 12 years ago, whenever it was, to do this because one of the constant issues I heard from county commissioners at the time, they didn't feel like they had to hand the budget process. So having a budget and budget advisory committee, you're all here, you all have a hand in this. The technical parts is the 5 members will, when it's appropriate to vote, will have to vote to move it on to regular session, but you're always free to ask questions during the budget meeting, and of course, you're always free to ask questions and have your input during a regular session. So that's where we are on this. So I think I always say that was the mayor's budget, now it's your budget. Y'all can accept it, you can amend it, or you can do your own. So good luck on that. That was another complaint I had from 12 years ago. Don't make us do our own budget. So, but this, yeah, well, and again, all my years on city council and dealing with a lot of things I dealt with, the thoughts of having to walk in and have a whole bunch of budgets thrown on your desk, like figure it out, and it's like I've got a real job and I can't do it all. So Mayor Weiss did that for us, and Mr. Wyckoff when they were there, and that's kind of where this came from. So again, y'all have the ultimate authority over the budget. It's y'all's duty and responsibility. I'm just here to help on this, unless we ever have a 6-to-6 tie. And over about 260 meetings, we haven't had one yet, so I never get to vote. Well, with all that, I went a lot longer than I thought I would, but we knew we probably would. But Dr. Weeks, if you'd like to come forward and present the school's budget, and before he speaks, I will tell you one thing. Dr. Weeks got me a copy of the budget last Thursday or Friday. Again, I haven't gone over it line by line. I know y'all need some time to do that. But what I can tell you is on the formula that we put together to work to do MOE and to be a very conservative formula, but a formula that continues to move money towards schools. Their budget, even though it goes into a deficit status, as it always does, it works well with what my prediction is on this. So as a whole, I'm very comfortable with the budget numbers that the school board has brought for us and what Dr. Weeks is about to present.
Commissioners, I would like to echo what the mayor has said. We really enjoyed that relationship and being on the same page. And as we prepare our budget, I bring it to you the same thing. We're not requesting any additional funds for the school department. I've provided a summary page on the front for you that would explain what we are doing in the budget. And again, without your, if you'd like to go through line by line, we can certainly do that. The Board of Education approved this budget last Thursday. We sent copies to you, I think, on Friday morning, but there were a couple of pages that need to be cleaned up. So this shows you an audited budget, an actual budget from the 21-22 and then the 22-23 school years. And again, as the mayor said, these are based on our projections for the end of the year, both in revenues and expenses. We'll cut the majority of our expenses off next week, and so we'll really get a good feel for what those numbers look like. But in our budget, you'll see there are basic employee raises. Our teachers will receive a $1,500 raise plus any step raises that they would have. Our support staff is some over $900 plus their step raises. You'll see our technology. There's always that need to keep technology before students. We are looking at some capital outlay projects in light of the funding that you have discussed for the Board of Education in the 24-25 school year. So we have looked at placing some funds in there for looking toward building plans, looking at consultations and things of that nature. As Mayor Ryle mentioned, in your budgets, you see various contracts that go up anywhere. Normally it's 3 to 5%, but this year most of ours are looking like 5 to 7%. This year we'll be adding a a welcome center or a security checkpoint at Creekwood High School, just like the one at Dickson County High School. So if you've been on Dickson County High School after the 8:05, 8:10, you know, you drive up the main drive there on Hensley and go through and you stop at the gate and someone checks your ID, checks your business for being there. Those people also stop students from leaving campus without permission, so they're checking traffic in and out. And so we will have one of those at Creekwood High School campus starting for the fall of this year as well. So that building and an attendant for that will be in there. I'm gonna say is they can't drive that way anymore. I'll put it that way. Now that may not, they may not, they may have some other ways of getting down there, but the 3 or 4 driveways, the chains are all locked. The poles are pulled at 8:05. So anybody that comes on and off campus, including our staff, we go through the main drive, check in, and so that takes place. I'm sure students can always be a little more creative than we are if they have that desire. Preschool emphasis is one of those things that we continue to talk about in education, is getting students ready to be at school, getting students' families prepared for what they need to learn in kindergarten, and you know that emphasis on early reading and literacy. So we're placing some resources in the budget for that. The Grow Your Own program is one of those programs that we're having a lot of students take advantage of. And Mr. Beatty, if you don't mind me using your daughter as an example of that, several individuals, you know, when we make a decision, we graduate from high school, we make a decision, do we want to go to college, do we want to go to work, what else would we like to do? The state of Tennessee has given us some grant money to call, and it's called a Grow Your Own program. So instead of us going out looking for teachers everywhere, we have the ability to take young high school graduates, put them to work while they will be their typical freshman year of high school or of college. So they're working for us in a teacher assistant role. They're going to school maybe 1, maybe 2 nights a week, taking their associate's degree, which the state's paying for all of that, or their resources through Hope scholarships and all those kind of things, while they're getting an experience of working for us during the school day. So, you know, what a deal that they're working for us. They're getting their education classes. They're going to have an associate's degree in 2 years. They'll transfer to Austin Peay in the fall of 23, and they'll come out with an a bachelor's degree at that point in time. They're already going to have the experience in the system. They know what it's like to work for us. They've got that experience of working with children. It's not like some of us might have done, you know, you go through all college, you student teach, and you decide that's not for me. So these kids are getting that up front and exciting. So we have 13 kids that are a part of that program. And so I think there are about 9 that are high school graduates last year, were high school graduates. And then we had some folks that worked for us as teacher assistants that, you know, life happened to them for whatever reason. And maybe they had to drop out of college, or maybe they didn't get a chance to even start college or participate in college. So those individuals are working for us now, going through the same program, getting their degrees while they're being paid. So they're earning a salary. They're going to school, getting a free education, basically going to come out with no debt. And the only exchange is they're agreeing, they've signed a contract to work for us in Dickson County. So we are growing our own teachers for that case. And so we got that program with National State. We're very proud to work with National State on that, and Austin Peay. And we're about to sign another agreement very similar to that with Belmont. So we're excited about that. And we were so successful this year, we have about 14 individuals lined up for that next year. So we're excited about that. If you have more questions about that, I'll be glad to get with you individually and talk about that. It kind of got away from budgeting on there. Transportation, the mayor mentioned fuel, parts, accessories, and you know that story. We budgeted for fuel, we budgeted for gas increases. As you know, trying to find supplies in the supply chain. So when we have a part or we need a part, trying to get that part and get it to us. So the transportation and utility budgets, you'll see changes in maintenance and operations. And then again, just to say that some of this too, just as your budgets are being offset with some ESSER dollars, and those ESSER dollars, those federal dollars that are coming to us for COVID relief. And again, I think the first time that I ever appeared before this commission, some of you were here then, you know, we were looking at some budgets that had spent some one-time federal dollars on expenses that would be recurring expenses. And I'll continue to tell my Board of Education, we are not doing that. We're being very proactive about where we're placing those dollars. We're putting those dollars in classrooms and in places, in items. And, you know, somebody 3 or 4 years from now, when all that money runs out, it's not going to stand before you and say, we need money to make up for what the federal government sent here. So we're being very careful with those dollars so that you're not going to run into that choice of do we raise taxes or anything like that. So again, we're coming to you saying that we do not have that need for that. Again, we've enjoyed working with the mayor and preparing this budget. And just as he explained, I'd like to thank my department heads and my principals. We start right after we return from school in January. We meet with every principal and we talk about their needs in their building. Then we meet with every department head and talk about what the principals requested. Each department head puts their budget and gives their budget to me, just as you have multiple budgets. All of ours just comes together in one budget, school's budget. So we put those numbers together. The Board of Education reviewed that about 3 or 4 weeks ago in planning session. They made a couple of suggestions that we provide some more social services to students. You know that we're continually dealing with student behavior and how student behavior, particularly coming out of COVID, has been. So you will see some dollars in there for dealing with student behavior in the form of social work, guidance counseling, however we tweak that out to be. But again, so that our students have access to those services that they need. But again, we believe we have a very healthy fund balance that will meet all of the state requirements for that. The mayor and I have talked about that, and again, as closer we get to the end of this year to see what those are projected to be, we believe we'll be in good shape. So I'm honored to present this budget to you tonight. I thank my board for approving it. And again, I'll be glad to answer any questions if you have those specifically, or if I don't have them tonight, we'll get them to you.
Feel free to ask Dr. Week any questions you may have.
I just got one on the new formula that the state is giving y'all.
Yes.
Have y'all figured that out yet?
I think so. I had the privilege, Mr. Evie, of serving on one of those committees. I chaired one of the committees for the commissioners, so I've kind of been on that from the very start. That will start not for this budget year, but for the 24-25 budget year. So, you know, really, it's more clear and more transparent, I think, for us to see where the dollars come to us. It's still not prescriptive about how those dollars are spent. So, you know, we received our estimates from the state last Friday afternoon, about 2 o'clock, of how many state dollars they anticipate sending us for this budget. And so I think it's going to be the same next year. It's just going to look different format, different form, and I think we can actually trace where those dollars will come from. But in terms of state dollars, I think we'll be blessed in Dickson County by a pretty significant increase.
Yeah, so it's gonna be an increase for Dickson County, right?
Yes, sir.
How many teachers are in this?
About 685 full-time positions. And again, we have part-time positions, and you know, when you say teachers, I'm using the term licensed personnel there because, you know, everybody that, you know, principals require license, assistant principals require license, and then we have, you know, we have some non-instructional people that do not require license for their position. So we're approaching 700 very easily.
Are y'all still gonna be able to provide like breakfast and lunch for the kids this year?
That has
free?
been a federal program, and they're still debating that for next year. I'm pretty safe in saying I believe that'll be secure for this coming budget year. I think there's a lot of discussion about carrying that forward, though.
Okay, thank you.
Since the COVID's kind of settled down, is there been an increase in kids at school rather than home school?
Yes, sir. Last year at this same period of time last year, we had about 18% of our student body learning.
27, wasn't it?
It had been as high as that, yes, sir. So we've seen all there, but as a matter of fact, this year during the school year, we had placed a distance learning program for 3rd, 4th, 5th graders that wanted to participate in that. Sometimes their parents or grandparents were still uneasy with them coming back to school, and so we provided distance learning opportunities for them. And we did not have enough interest at the elementary grade levels to continue that program and to be efficient at that. So we're